Tyson. Warren Lane's voice cracked through the thick buzz of the Saturday fairground, his heart pounding harder than the screaming kids on the roller coaster. He dropped the half-eaten hot dog, eyes darting wildly across the sea of people. The chaos of balloons, sticky candy fingers, and strollers blurred around him. His 5-year-old son had been right next to him. One blink. 1 second. Gone. Tyson. He shouted again, louder this time, panic clawing up his throat. He shoved past a couple taking selfies and nearly tripped over a toddler licking ice cream off his elbow. Sweat soaked his collar as he spun in circles. His son wasn't just missing, he was completely gone. "Sir, are you okay?" A woman's voice cut through the noise, calm but sharp. Warren turned, about to snap something desperate, but froze. She was stunning. Tall, poised, effortlessly elegant in a navy blouse tucked into white slacks, not a strand of her dark blonde hair out of place. She looked like she belonged at a boardroom table, not a sticky-floored fairground. "My son," Warren gasped. "He's 5. Tyson. He was right here." He disappeared. Her eyes ice blue, focused, steady locked onto his. "What's he wearing?" "Red hoodie, blue jeans, Velcro sneakers. He has this little dinosaur backpack." Without hesitation, she turned on her heel. "Come with me." Warren didn't think he followed. She moved fast, weaving through the crowd like she'd done this 100 times. "Security's usually stationed near the carousel," she said over her shoulder. "It's a high-visibility area. Kids tend to drift there." "You know this place?" he asked, breathless. "I fund it," she said simply. He blinked. "Wait, what?" But there was no time to ask. They reached the carousel, and there just past the ticket booth was Tyson, sitting cross-legged on the pavement, talking to a security guard, completely fine. "Daddy." Tyson jumped up the second he saw him. Warren dropped to his knees and pulled him into a crushing hug. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I just wanted to see the horses," Tyson mumbled. "I didn't mean to run." Warren held him tighter. "You scared me, buddy." The woman stood a few steps back, arms crossed, watching them. When Warren finally looked up, his throat tightened. "Thank you," he said, standing and reaching out to shake her hand. "Seriously, I don't know what I would have done if don't mention it," she said, accepting his handshake with a small nod. "I'm just glad he's safe." "I'm Warren," he added. "Warren Lane." "Lyla Jensen," she replied. He looked down at Tyson, who was now chasing a butterfly around a trash can like nothing had happened. "You really helped me back there." She gave a small smile. "You looked like you were about to pass out." "I think I was." She laughed gently, then glanced down at her phone. No texts, no calls, just the blank screen. "You two okay now?" "Yeah," Warren said, still watching his son like he might vanish again. I'm a single dad. His mom passed when he was 3. I try to do everything right, but sometimes I screw it up." Lila's expression softened. "You're doing fine. He's loved. That's obvious." He looked up at her, surprised by how sincere she sounded. "You want to grab a lemonade?" she asked suddenly, catching him off guard. "What?" "There's a stand over there. You look like you need something cold and sweet, and I've got nowhere to be for the next 20 minutes. Warren blinked. "You don't have to, I know," she cut in smoothly. "But I want to." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right. Tyson, you want lemonade?" "Yes." They sat at a shaded picnic table, Lyla sipping from a tall lemonade with a lemon wedge balanced on the rim, Warren next to her, Tyson slurping from a kid's cup with a twisty straw. "So," he said, glancing at her over the plastic table. "You said you fund the fair?" "I sponsor it through my company, Jensen Corporation." He nearly choked on his drink. "Wait, Jensen Corp? Like the tech company?" "Jensen Corp." She nodded casually. "Yeah." Warren stared at her, stunned. "You're the CEO?" "Guilty." He sat back, trying to process that the woman who just chased through a crowd to help a stranger find his kid was also the head of one of the biggest companies on the West Coast. "I'm not usually this dressed down," she added, grinning when she saw his face. "But weekends are sacred. You don't look dressed down." She laughed. "Compared to a boardroom, this is pajamas." Warren chuckled, relaxing a little. "So why'd you help me?" A CEO doesn't usually chase through crowds for random dads. Lyla looked at him for a long second. "Because you looked like everything you loved was slipping through your fingers. And I've felt that before." He didn't know what to say to that. But he didn't look away either. "Besides," she added, her voice quiet, "you and Tyson. You remind me of something I wish I had growing up." Warren wasn't sure what that meant, but it struck something deep. They sat there for another hour. Tyson dozed off in his lap, lemonade cup forgotten. Lyla watched him like she wasn't in a rush to be anywhere else. He didn't know how it happened, but by the time the sun dipped low and the fair started glowing with string lights, Warren felt like the world had shifted. When she finally stood to leave, she reached out and gently touched his shoulder. "It was really nice meeting you, Warren." "You too, Lyla." She hesitated for a second. "I hope we'll run into each other again." He smiled. "Me too." And just like that, she was gone, disappearing back into the crowd the same way she'd come. But this time, Warren didn't feel lost. He felt curious. And for the first time in months, he felt something else too. Hope. 3 days later, Warren stood behind the counter of the auto repair shop, scribbling a parts order on a grease-stained clipboard while trying to keep an eye on Tyson, who sat cross-legged on the shop floor, humming to himself as he built a race car out of broken bolts and mismatched lug nuts. "Don't put that in your mouth," Warren called absently, watching his son eye a washer with intense curiosity. "I wasn't," Tyson grumbled without looking up. The bell above the door jingled, and Warren wiped his hands on the rag tucked into his waistband. The customer was already halfway inside when he looked up and froze. Lyla. This time, she wore a simple ivory trench coat belted at the waist, her hair pulled back in a low twist. She looked completely out of place in the oil-slicked garage, yet somehow completely unfazed. "Hey," she said, stepping forward. Warren blinked. Hey. Wow. This is unexpected. I hope I'm not interrupting." Tyson popped up from the floor. "That's the lady from the fair." Lyla crouched to his level. "Hey, buddy. You still chasing butterflies?" He grinned. "Today I'm building race cars." "Cool," she said, tapping a finger to her chin. "Think you could build me a spaceship next?" Tyson nodded solemnly. "Spaceships are easier." Warren leaned on the counter, still trying to make sense of her appearance. "What brings you to my side of town?" "I had a meeting 2 blocks over," she answered. "And I figured since I was nearby." "You dropped by a garage?" "I was hoping you'd be here," she said plainly. He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" She didn't blink. "Because I wanted to see you again." Warren glanced at Tyson, who had now returned to his pile of makeshift parts, then back at Lyla. "You always this direct?" "I don't like wasting time," she said. "Especially not on things that matter." He exhaled, unsure how to respond to that. "All right. Do you want to sit down?" "It's not much, but there's an old vending machine and a cracked coffee pot in the break room." "I'll take my chances," she said, following him through a side door. The room was tiny, lit by a single buzzing overhead bulb. A folding card table sat in the corner with 2 metal chairs, and the coffee machine looked like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. Lyla didn't flinch. She sat, crossed her legs, and folded her hands in her lap. "So," Warren said, leaning against the doorframe, "you tracked me down to this glamorous little corner of the world. I'm guessing that wasn't easy." "You're listed as an emergency contact for Tyson at his daycare," she said. "I had someone call pretending to be confirming a parents' night invitation. They gave me the shop's name." He stared at her. "You had someone impersonate a daycare employee?" I said, "I don't like wasting time." "That's mildly terrifying," he said, though he couldn't entirely keep the amusement out of his voice. She gave a small tilt of her head. "I didn't come here to scare you. I came because I haven't stopped thinking about you." Warren felt something shift in his chest. "Okay, that's a lot." "I know," she said, "but I don't do well with pretending I don't feel things when I do." He crossed his arms. "Look, I'm flattered." "Really? But I've got a kid, a small paycheck, and a beat-up truck that stalls in second gear. And you run one of the biggest tech companies in the country. That's not a small gap." "I'm not here to discuss my portfolio," she said. "I'm here because when I saw you with your son, when I saw the way you held him, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time." Warren watched her carefully. "Which is safe," she said softly. "And I haven't felt safe around anyone since I was a kid." He let that sink in before answering. "You don't even know me." "Not yet," she agreed, "but I'd like to." He scrubbed a hand over his jaw. "You're serious?" "Yes. I've never dated anyone since Tyson's mom. And even then, it wasn't." He trailed off, unsure if he wanted to say more. "You don't have to explain," she said. "But if you're worried about me expecting some perfect version of you, you can stop." He looked at her. "Why?" "Because I'm not perfect either." They sat in silence for a beat, the hum of the light filling the space. Warren finally said, "Would you ever want kids?" The question surprised even him. "Yes," Lyla said without hesitation. "But I used to think I'd be terrible at it." Why? Because I never had an example of what it looked like to be loved well. Until I saw you with your son. Warren swallowed hard, unsure what to do with that. Tyson's voice echoed from the garage. Dad, I made a spaceship. He stepped into the hallway. 2 minutes, buddy. Lyla stood. I should go. You could stay, he said before he could second-guess it. She studied him. Are you sure? No, he admitted. But I want to be. She nodded once. Then I'll stay. Warren adjusted the collar of the only blazer he owned, the navy one with the loose thread near the cuff, and waited outside the glass entrance of the Jensen Foundation building, gripping the paper invitation Lyla had handed him 3 days earlier. Come to the benefit, she'd said. It's not a date. Just meet me there. Now, standing in front of a building taller than anything he'd ever been inside, wearing borrowed shoes half a size too tight, he wished he'd said no. But his curiosity had a louder voice than his fear. He turned to the woman beside him, a warm-faced nanny named Carla, who was holding Tyson's hand while the boy excitedly pointed at a sculpture of a chrome lion. You sure you're okay watching him for a couple hours? Warren asked. He's already told me his entire plan to build a flying car, Carla said, laughing. We'll be fine. Warren crouched and kissed Tyson's head. Be good. No climbing things. I won't, Dad, Tyson said with exaggerated innocence, then added, unless they look climbable. Warren groaned. Carla, I'm sorry in advance. She waved him off. Go. He stepped through the revolving door and into a lobby that looked like it belonged in a movie. White marble floors, a chandelier that looked like it was made from falling glass stars, and a string quartet playing in the far corner. He stood awkwardly, unsure of where to go, until a man in a black vest approached. Mr. Lane, Miss Jensen asked me to escort you. Of course she did. He followed the man through a set of tall mirrored doors and into the main ballroom. The ceiling arched like a cathedral, and the walls were lined with enormous floral arrangements in tall crystal vases. Guests in designer gowns and sharp tuxedos sipped champagne and murmured in low voices, the way rich people did when they wanted to look like they didn't care how expensive everything was. He spotted her before she saw him. Lyla stood near the stage, deep in conversation with a group of men in tailored suits. Her dress was black, sleek, with a single strap looping over one shoulder and dipping into a low back. Her hair was swept up, revealing a delicate set of gold earrings shaped like small wings. She spoke with the same cool authority he'd seen in the garage, but here, surrounded by power, she looked entirely in her element. When she turned and saw him, her face changed not dramatically, just enough for him to catch the flicker of warmth beneath the surface. She excused herself and crossed the room toward him, her heels tapping softly on the marble. You came, she said, her tone unreadable. I did, Warren replied. Might be the only time I ever wear these shoes, but yeah. She looked down, then back up with a faint smile. They suit you. So does this world always look like a Bond movie? Only when the donors need convincing. Convincing of what? That compassion can be profitable. Warren studied her. You mean that? I live by it. Before he could respond, a woman in a midnight blue gown interrupted them, greeting Lyla with a kiss on both cheeks. Warren stepped back instinctively, but Lyla caught his wrist gently and didn't let go. This is Warren Lane, she said to the woman. A guest of mine. The woman gave a polite nod and moved on. Warren leaned in slightly. Guest of yours, huh? You are. Not a date, though, right? Depends how the night goes. The lights dimmed, and a voice over the speaker welcomed everyone to the Jensen Foundation's annual gala. Lyla led him to a table near the front, where name cards sat in elegant script. He noticed something as he pulled out his chair. His name wasn't just scribbled onto a last-minute placeholder. It was printed, in the same calligraphy as the other guests. You planned this, he said under his breath. Lyla glanced at him. I don't improvise often. As dinner was served steak with a truffle glaze, some tiny vegetables that looked more like art than food, Warren kept catching people glancing at him. Not rudely, but curiously. He was the only man in the room without cufflinks. The only one with calloused hands and a sunburned neck. He leaned toward Lyla. You realize I'm probably the only person here who knows how to rotate tires without YouTube. She turned her head, her voice low. And you're probably the only person here who knows how to fix something with your bare hands. You could have invited someone more polished. I could have, she said, but then I'd be bored. After dinner, she pulled him onto the terrace overlooking the city skyline. The wind tugged at the hem of her gown, and the lights below glittered like scattered diamonds. He looked out silently for a long time before saying, I don't know how to fit into your world. She stepped closer. I don't want you to fit into it. I want to make space for you in it. That's not an easy thing to promise. I don't do easy. Warren hesitated, then looked her in the eyes. Why me? Lila's voice was quiet but sure. Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to be anything other than exactly who I am. And that's rare. He didn't speak, not immediately. But his hand found hers, and he didn't let go. Inside, a string of applause signaled the end of his speech. But neither of them moved. The city stretched out below them, vast and unknowable. But right here in this moment, in this impossible intersection of worlds, they stood still. Together. Warren stood in the middle of his living room with a wrench in one hand and a toy fire truck in the other, staring at the small pile of screws that had apparently fallen out of the thing during Tyson's latest modification. Across the room, his son was on the couch with a juice box and a book about volcanoes, completely unbothered by the disaster of parts on the floor. Did this used to make noise? Warren asked, shaking the fire truck gently. It used to make siren sounds, Tyson said without looking up. But I wanted it to shoot rockets instead. Right? Warren muttered. Of course you did. Before he could figure out which end the battery cover belonged to, the doorbell rang. He wiped his hands on his jeans and opened the door. Lyla stood there with a paper bag in one arm and a small bouquet of sunflowers in the other. I brought dinner, she said. And I wasn't sure if you had a vase, so I brought these in a jar. Warren blinked, then stepped aside. You brought flowers in a mason jar? I didn't peg you for a crystal vase guy. He let out a quiet laugh and took the bag. You were right. She walked in and looked around, taking in the modest living room with its beat-up couch, the crayon drawings pinned to the wall, and the shelf lined with action figures standing guard over a stack of old car magazines. Smells like grilled cheese and motor oil, she said. Probably because that's exactly what you're smelling. She followed him into the kitchen, setting the sunflowers on the counter. I made chicken curry. It's mild. I figured Tyson might try it. Warren placed the bag on the table and glanced toward the living room. He'll eat anything as long as it comes with rice and a promise of dessert. As he unpacked the containers, Lyla leaned back against the counter, watching him. Is this weird for you? She asked. What? You showing up with dinner and flowers in a jar like it's totally normal. Yes. He looked at her. Weird? Yeah, but not bad. She tilted her head. I wasn't sure if I should come. You've been here less than a minute and already brought more food than I've seen in my fridge all week. Pretty sure you're in the clear. She gave him a look he hadn't seen before, uncertain, almost hesitant. I wasn't sure if I should come back at all, she said quietly. It doesn't make sense on paper. Warren set the lid of one of the containers aside. You think I don't know that? I know you do, she said. But you've been careful. I can feel it. Every time I talk about anything outside of this, outside of here, you pull back like you're waiting for it all to collapse. He leaned against the opposite counter, arms folded. That's because I am. Why? Because I've never had anything like this that didn't fall apart. Lyla didn't respond right away. She walked over to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat. The gesture wasn't dramatic, just deliberate, present. I'm not going anywhere, she said. You don't have to believe it yet, but I'll show you. Warren was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've got a kid. I've got a job that leaves grease under my nails and barely covers rent. I don't own anything fancy. I don't know how to play rich, Lyla. She looked at him with steady eyes. Good. I don't want anyone who knows how to play anything. He sat across from her slowly, the air between them thick with something new, something vulnerable. What do you want then? He asked. I want a life that doesn't feel like I'm constantly performing. I want to build something with someone who doesn't need to impress me. I want real. Warren studied her. You don't think I'll disappoint you? I think you'll be honest. And that's more than I've ever had. Before he could answer, footsteps padded into the kitchen. Tyson appeared, holding a toy jet in one hand and rubbing his eye with the other. Is it dinner yet? Lyla smiled and stood. Almost. You hungry? He nodded. Does it have rice? I wouldn't dare forget the rice. They sat around the table, the three of them, passing dishes and laughing when Tyson spilled a spoonful and tried to cover it with a napkin like nothing happened. The conversation wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of ease Warren hadn't felt in years, like a puzzle piece he didn't know was missing had finally clicked into place. Later that night, after Tyson had fallen asleep on the couch mid-cartoon, Warren walked Lyla to the door. You didn't have to do all this, he said. I wanted to. Why? She looked up at him. Because this is where I want to be. He reached for her wrist lightly. Lyla, if you stay in this, it won't be easy. Easy's never impressed me. He kissed her then slow, certain, a promise wrapped in silence. She didn't say anything when they pulled apart, just rested her forehead against his for a moment, then walked out into the night with that same quiet grace she carried in every room. The next morning, Warren woke early to the sound of Tyson humming in the kitchen. He found his son standing on a step stool, pouring cereal into 2 bowls, one for himself, and one he set carefully in front of the chair Lyla had sat in the night before. You think she'll come back? Tyson asked without looking up. Warren took a breath. Yeah, he said finally. I think she will. And when she did, because he'd be ready. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And that was enough. The storm rolled in fast. Warren stood at the window of Lyla's penthouse, arms crossed, watching the heavy rain streak down the glass like ink. Below, the city lights blurred into ribbons of gold and red, the sounds of traffic distant through the thick glass. Behind him, the low hum of jazz played from hidden speakers, a soft contrast to the thunder that cracked across the sky. Lyla came out of the bedroom, barefoot, holding a photo frame in her hand. She crossed the room quietly and handed it to him. In the photo, a younger Lyla sat beside a woman with tired eyes and a crooked smile. They were on the steps of a small brick house, a battered suitcase beside them, and the woman's hand rested protectively on Lyla's shoulder. My mother, she said. That was right before she left for the last time. He looked up. She didn't come back? No, Warren studied her face. She wasn't crying, but her voice had rough edges. I used to carry this around when I started Jensen Corp, she said. Told myself if I ever made it, I'd buy her that house back. But I never found her. She just left. She had no one. No money. No support. I used to think she was selfish. But now, Lyla exhaled, setting the photo on the table. Now I just think she was scared. Warren stepped closer. You're not her. No, she said, looking at him. But sometimes I wonder if I carry the same cracks. He reached for her hand. You're not broken, Lyla. You're just strong in ways most people never get to be. She didn't answer right away. Then she looked around the space at the tall windows, the curated art, the untouched bookshelves. I bought this place because it was everything I thought success should look like, she said. But it's never felt like home. Warren ran his thumb along the back of her hand. What does home feel like to you now? She looked at him. Messy. Loud. Sticky fingers on the fridge door. A man with grease on his neck fixing a broken drawer because he can't stand to leave anything damaged. He laughed softly. That drawer was leaning like the Tower of Pisa. Exactly, she whispered. They stood there, thunder echoing overhead, the silence between them no longer uncertain, but full of something warm and whole. Come with me this weekend, she said suddenly. There's a property I've been looking at. It's outside the city. A vineyard, actually. I was thinking about buying it. But now I'm thinking about building something there instead. Warren raised an eyebrow. Like what? A home, she said. With a workshop for you. And a treehouse for Tyson. He blinked. You're serious? I've never been more. I don't need a vineyard, he said. I don't either, she replied. But I want the space. The quiet. The kind of life where we don't have to schedule 30 minutes just to see each other. And you'd leave this? He asked, glancing at the penthouse. She nodded. It was never really mine. Not the way you and Tyson are. He pulled her in then, arms wrapping around her waist, her head tucked beneath his chin. I've been scared too, he murmured. Scared I'd mess this up. Scared you'd wake up one day and realize I don't belong in your world. You never did, she said, lifting her gaze to meet his. That's why I had to build a new one. The rain slowed to a gentle patter, the city quieting beneath the weight of it. 2 days later, they drove out to the vineyard. It wasn't fancy. The house was old, the porch sagged, and the shutters hung crooked. But the view stretched for miles, rolling hills, wildflowers, and a crooked oak tree that Tyson immediately declared was perfect for building pirate forts. Lyla walked the land barefoot, Warren's hand in hers, Tyson running ahead with a stick that doubled as a sword. This place needs work, Warren said. So do we, she replied. But I think it's worth it. They signed the papers that afternoon. A month later, Warren moved in. Tyson had a room with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and Lyla had traded her penthouse for a porch swing and a kitchen where she actually cooked badly, but enthusiastically. Warren built shelves, fixed broken floorboards, and taught Tyson how to use a hammer safely. Lyla planted sunflowers along the fence. And one Sunday morning, as the sun broke through the mist, Warren walked out into the field and found Lyla standing barefoot in the grass, her hair down, wearing one of his old shirts. He walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You look like you belong here," he said. "I do," she whispered. "With you." Later that summer, they stood under the oak tree, Tyson between them in a crooked bow tie, as Warren bent to one knee. He didn't say anything rehearsed, just took her hand and said, "I want this. All of it. Every day. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she said, with tears slipping down her cheeks. "Always." They married in the vineyard that fall. Friends and neighbors gathered under the golden leaves. There were no elaborate centerpieces or crystal chandeliers, just laughter and dancing under string lights, Tyson chasing bubbles in a little suit, and a sunset that looked like it had been painted just for them. Warren kissed her as the wind swept through the vines, the world soft and full around them. And in that moment, with her hands in his, and his son's laughter echoing in the distance, he knew this wasn't just a happy ending. It was the beginning of everything they never thought they could have. They were home. Together. Always.